Well, with us now, we do have a special guest, Miss Rachel Peters from Champion Physical Therapy on the Volunteer Parkway, and we'll have Rachel come and sit with us. Of course, she was with us, 3 weeks ago now, Rachel, I think? Something like that. 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we were talking about concussions, and I know that we got a lot of questions about that, and that's a good thing. So we had people listening. They made notes of things going on. I guess we were talking about it during the show, and people had asked about that. So that worked. That was a great thing.
Wonderful.
And hopefully we can have you on one of our shows. That's our plan, is to do that at some point in time, either on Monday or Wednesday. But again, Rachel at Champion Physical Therapy. Of course, Champion is our sponsor of our injury report, which I'll just go ahead and give it to you. The Vikings are 100%, with the exception of Ryan Fleener. And so Ryan is off the crutches now. I had a chance to talk to him yesterday. He has an MRI on his knee Monday, and hopefully he's going to be released. He's been working out and doing some things, but it was just some junk in his knees, what he had to have cleaned up, and it's been that way for a couple of years. So hopefully he's going to be at 100%. When I was talking to him yesterday, he said, David, I'm, just kind of take your time, and he said, no, next week is homecoming and I need to play, and so we'll see how the coaching staff goes along with that. I think that it may be that thing where they'll let him play a couple of snaps if he's cleared.
Yeah,
I don't see him playing a lot, though. So
yeah, it sounds like he didn't have anything too major, so he might have playing a little bit.
Cleaned up some stuff and did that, and while we're talking about knees. Rachel, let's talk about some ACLs.
Sounds great. It's usually the topic of conversation right behind concussions about this time of year, especially with football and volleyball going on in the fall. Those are two of the main sports that we see ACL tears in, other than basketball. So for very different reasons. So volleyball is mainly going to be a non-contact problem. We know that female athletes have a higher risk, something like 4 to 6 times higher risk of ACL injuries, compared to boys. Mostly teenagers, some into college, some into professionals, but mostly teenagers is when we see that. Football is going to be more of a contact problem. They're going to get hit low or cut or, get rolled up on, whatever you want to call it. It happens more in football because of contact, more in volleyball because of non-contact injuries where they just have very bad mechanics or very bad landing techniques. So it's harder to prevent in football, but it's still preventable to some length.
Right. We've talked about this, I guess, down at Cheryl's office, but you are working with Sylvanese with the Lady Patriots right now, and have been for a while because we're in the middle of volleyball season now. But you have been working with the Lady Patriots on helping build knees up and work with them and to keep that from happening so much.
Yeah, we're doing some volunteer work over there as far as implementing a jump program. It's a preventative jump program. They teach them techniques on how to jump, how to land, how to cut, and then how to turn and make a good approach without putting their knees at stress. So we're starting that with the volleyball team. We have plans to start it with the basketball team at East. Also have some plans to cover some other area high schools, especially for the women's sports because they are so at risk. But we may end up doing some of the men's sports also.
When you're talking about jumps, how do you work those
We start them basic. Even before a jump, we start with a basic squat. Get their squats where it's in good form. Their knees are not at risk. They don't have any valgus, any knock-knee position when they squat, and we go from there. So they start from a squat. They go into a jump, a basic jump from both limbs, and they progressively get harder to where they're jumping off of one leg, and then maybe they're adding a cutting. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I know back years ago when my daughters were playing basketball, we used to just jump a wall.
Right.
And I know you've done the same thing.
Right.
And then we'd stop and then go again, and it wore them out, but it really helped them out in the long run,
It did help them. It did help. I think at this point, kids are playing throughout the year in different seasons, and they're not taking a break to actually train their bodies. So even though they may go through a small conditioning program, the majority of those kids may miss that conditioning program if they're coming from a different sport. So you have kids going from volleyball to basketball to softball, or maybe they're going from soccer to basketball or something like that. And they're missing the conditioning that's so important before the season begins.
Right.
So then they're still staying at risk because they're never getting any jump training or strength training, sprint training. They're just playing all year.
Right.
So.
And, I mean, yeah, it's sports, but the fact is because they are different, they are separate, you're going to move differently. You're not going to run the same in volleyball as you are at soccer.
Right, exactly.
And a lot of people don't think about that, I'm sure, but the fact is that's the way it is.
That is the way it is. That is the way it is. It helps a lot to add in those programs, and we'll see how the volleyball team does after doing the jump training program. If they have fewer ACL injuries, which I feel like they are going to have fewer ACL injuries, then it'll be a very good testimony that we need to start adding these in to every program at every school.
Right.
And it's not a hard program to add in. It takes about 4 weeks. It's something the coaches can mostly do. They just need someone to step in, take them through it about once a week, and then they can go from there.
Right. I just thought about this. What would be the possibility if you all helping out with a summer camp or?
Yeah.
I mean, I just happen to think about that. I mean, that's especially like when, like Lady Viking softball, for instance, they're going through a fall camp every Monday until the middle of October. Those kinds of things, and of course they all have them during the summer. Fall baseball's getting ready to start, but it's those kind of things where they're bringing in third up to the 8th graders because they can't participate, as you know. But those kinds of things. I mean, that may be something that really
it's a great time
to look
at.
It's
a great time to add it in. Actually, the kids are getting more active at that point. And usually you don't see any ACL tears younger than about 13 years old.
Right.
So if you can teach them the correct jump techniques and landing techniques at 10, 11, 12 years old, it will stick with them.
Right.
And then as they get older, they start playing high school and college ball. They won't have that same risk that they would have had they never gone through that program. So it'd be wonderful to start it in.
Yeah, I mean, just thought about that. It's just out of the box. But anyway, the other thing, we've talked about ball athletes, cheerleaders. Yeah. They get injured all the time.
Cheerleaders.
Swimmers, yeah, exactly. Swimmers as well, Chris. You're right.
Yeah.
But the knees on the cheerleaders, they that's a constant pounding, and so it's like and I know. It's like pounding on your knees, and, you can do this or you can do that. The same thing with swimming. You're moving the same rotations with cheering than you are with swimming, like on butterfly, for sure. So there's a lot of those things that nobody really thinks about the cheerleaders. Cheerleading is not like it used to be. No. It's very competitive now, and so they get a lot of wear and tear on their bodies.
Yeah, cheerleading is interesting. I would say you actually see less ACL tears in cheerleading, but the reason is that they have to jump and land in a proper position compared to everybody else on the team. So they all want to look the same, which means they all need to jump and land in a particular pattern, which is usually a pretty good pattern for your knee.
Right.
Now, that's not saying, though, that all the tumbling and jumping and twisting is not dangerous, because all of that twisting does put a lot of torque on the knee, and they may end up with other problems other than an ACL tear, like a meniscus tear.
Right.
But they still are at risk for ACL tears, just not typically in their regular program. That's more in their tumbling.
But I didn't want to leave them out. So, and we don't want to leave swimming out as well. I mean, it's really, y'all can do everything, and I know that. Matter of fact, I ran into a friend of mine that I've gone to school with down there the other day when I stopped to see you. But it's y'all are open on the Volunteer Parkway Monday through Friday, and you can be referred down there and just talk a little bit about it.
Our office is new. It's been open about 6 months now. We have late hours. We're usually open till about 6 o'clock, and the flexibility of the clinic allows me to come in if I need to earlier or later to visit with anyone who may need earlier or later appointments. Also, the changes that have been made in the state laws lately allow for patients to come in, walk in. They can be seen by me before they ever are seen by a doctor, which allows them to be seen quicker. They don't have to go through all these processes to try to get to the doctor. And then, if they need an X-ray, don't need an X-ray, whatever, but they get to me quicker than they would if they had to go through the doctor.
So you don't have to worry about 100 pieces of paper to get through. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you still have to have those 100 pieces of papers, but maybe not right when you come in the door.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But again, they are open on the Volunteer Parkway, and we'll have Rachel back on with us again. And she's actually didn't have to go out of town. East is playing at Cumberland Gap tonight.
Opted out of that trip.
I can't say I blame you, but but Rachel is helping with the Sullivan East Lady Patriots right now, and she's very familiar with Tennessee High. She helped out some in a previous life here at Tennessee High with one of our sponsors. But again, Rachel, greatly appreciate you coming down, and we'll check our schedules and see, or check your schedule more than ours to see when you can come back on.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to take a 3-minute time out. When we come back, we're going to get a couple